National leader of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, has urged President Buhari and the National Assembly to immediately put a stop to economic austerity and introduce economic stimulus. He says that the country must fine-tune its economic programs as the federal government has the sovereign power and must use it to improve the quality of life of Nigerians. Joining me to discuss this is Akin Fatunke, public affairs commentator, and in-house analyst Obani Akinwale. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning, Veronica.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right. Let's look at this conversation stemming from the colloquium, the 12th colloquium that happened or took place in Kano on Monday. And this conversation stems out of the fact that COVID-19 came and hit every country really hard, especially economically. And the attendant effect is what we have seen across countries, but a lot of countries came up with measures to address these issues. And the APC stalwarts talked about the fact that when you look at the US, they brought measures to address these issues, talking about stimulus to address, to try and stabilize the economy. You hear a lot of persons talking about stimulus checks and all of it. And in comparison to ours in Nigeria, he says ours is more like austerity measures, which is not really addressing the economic challenge and bringing about that balance that we need in the economy. But first, if we need to differentiate between austerity measures and we need to differentiate between austerity measures and stimulus measures. I'll start with you, Obani.
Yeah, good morning once again. For me, austerity measure will simply means ways in which government want to stifle people from spending. Policies that government puts in place to ensure that it's another way of saying hardship. That's what austerity measure means. And if you look at vividly at what this government has been doing, at least in about 4 or 5 years ago, you will see that it is getting harder and harder for people to spend, and it's getting very terrible for people to even earn. Look at the policy of VAT of 7.5, you see it's still there. Look at the policy on fuel deregulation, it's still there. Look at the policy on power sector MITO law, is still there. So for every sensible government or every other government that understand that we are in a very peculiar situation, especially with the incursion of the pandemic, COVID, every economy has been trying to ensure that they push in more into the system creatively in such a way that allow people to have the purchasing power and also for them to be able to not to feel the hardship as brought on them by the pandemic. But in our own case, we are doing different things entirely. And if you look at the speech from Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, what he has said is that government should try as much as possible to find a way of injecting money into the system. This is done in every civilized world. In Canada, austerity, stimulus was packaged for people while they're at home. It's happening in US, in UK, in China. Food were dropped at people's house. But in our own case, what are we doing? US government has getting about 1.9 trillion thereabout as the first package to inject the economy. UK economy is doing the same thing. But in our own case, what are we doing? What we are doing is 20,000 naira for people, 5,000 naira for people, which for me, it is not going to re-energize the economy. And if you look at what the CBN governor said a few days ago when they're having the MPC meeting, what he said is that because of the nature of inflation we have, which is about 13% or 16% or thereabout, they still want to retain the values that was used last year. So you ask yourself, what was the economy indices last year? And why should we retain it? And how will this re-energize the economy? It will not. And that's when the message was saying, if, for example, you employ 500,000 or even 50,000 people into Nigerian army, what it means is that to do that, they will collect salary, which means you have enabled them to have purchasing power. Then somebody will generate their uniform, somebody will generate their boots, somebody will generate where they will stay, and before you know it, infrastructural development comes in, and these are ways that civilized society begin to re-energize the economy, and it will even bring down the unemployment rate. See, our insecurity in this country is directly proportional to the number of unemployed youth. People begin to agitate when you don't have things in place.
All right, let me come to you now, Akin Fatunke. I wonder if you're towing the line of what the APC stalwart has said injecting monies into the economy? Because a lot of persons are asking questions. Where are we even going to find these monies if we are to inject monies into the economy? And we already see our debt profile. Like the recent report says we have about 32.92 trillion naira. That's the debt profile of the federal government and the state government. And if we are to say we want to stabilize the economy, where do we begin? What amounts are we even looking at?
Precisely, Veronica, for me, it comes to the neoclassical definition of how to grow economies, especially when you have the kind of states the whole world, and specifically Nigeria, is gone into injecting money. But my challenge is in asking the fundamental questions. Which one comes first? Chicken or the egg? Like you said, of course, we've had little bits and pieces. Even the almighty US that pumped 1.9 trillion the initial thing virtually hit nowhere with COVID on. They were able to sustain it because they had the productivity and they had the clout. That is not what we have in Nigeria. Now, looking at Asiwaju Bola Tinubu's postulation, one is unemployment at 33%. Correct.
Yes.
In fact, what we need to now add on to that is the hidden shadow unemployment of about 20%. We are running at close to about 55% in terms of real unemployment. Youths coming out of school with nothing.
Like someone said, there's underemployment and unemployment.
So when you add that together, I mean, do we have peace in Nigeria? Certainly no, we don't have peace in Nigeria. Do we have the bandits ravishing the countrysides, all against our coat of arms? The Red Eagle, strength. Will we say Nigeria has strength today? The two white horses, dignity. Do we have dignity in any way or form in Nigeria today? The two black shields looking at our agriculture and our natural resources. Are we looking at a place like Zamfara, even in Osun, the kind of illegal mining that has been going on there? Or are we looking at the two rivers, the Silver, River Niger and River Benue, where we are supposed to be having relative peace going on around all those banks? They've been taking over it. If it is not insurgents, it is going to be, people agitating for this and that. Should we now be looking at the, Coctus mirabilis, the beautiful flowers that adorn that coat of arms? So, in all matters particular, I believe that Asiwaju has clearly indicated the fact that, yes, we are in comatose and we need to inject. It's unacceptable to pump in more money. I have the only problem is the fact that until we've solved the fundamentals, beyond putting, injecting, and he just mentioned the trader money, 5,000 naira, good, better than nothing. But it's still not on. We still look at situations where, at least for the very first time in relative history, we have a lot of money going into infrastructure. Again, like he said, it's still coming too little, a bit too late. Why? Because we have not been able to harness all the potentials that we need to have harnessed. We are still very, very expensive. We are corruptive in our public service, in public service allocation. We have not looked at the bottom line to really say to ourselves, apart from this cost of governance, do we have an over-bloated kind of governance? Is this democracy working in the way and manner that they should be working at the back of COVID? We should try and do that, but if we do not measure what success we are trying to get, we keep on putting money down the hole. We need to get a restructure of the mind. We need to get a restructure of the economy. We have to look for financial restructuring.
A holistic approach is what you're saying.
And that is one of the things I know for sure that Asiwaju Tinubu has always been preaching about. Whether it's this government or the previous government, I like to say we've been marching one step forward, perhaps a bit too slow in terms of moving
forward. For you now, between the chicken and the egg, which one comes first in terms of should we be tackling issues of insecurity first before we're thinking of injecting monies, or we should inject monies, then perhaps that will address issues of insecurity?
Are you able to inject money under insecurity? One naturally comes before the other. The money you want to inject is because you have productively been able to gather that under peace and conditions to ensure that the SDG goals, 17 of them, are all working in tandem like we have in the US. But without security, you cannot even, you are in a state of anomy, and you cannot even begin to think right. Look at the quantum of money. Asiwaju is talking about injecting money. Like I said, I don't have a problem in that, right. But I have a problem in injecting money like we injected in AMCON, and it's gone down the drain. We've not been able to measure. We've not been able to account. A lot of this stimulus, it's not just a question of just injecting money. We inject money in a structured manner, audited, in a transparent manner, that at the end of the day, we are able to measure what we are doing, even if it is a little bit of a quantum. I have not seen, and as an accountant, part of my challenge is the fact that we say, yes, we are doing some things. We've not been able to measure them. Yeah, generally, I know it cannot be up enough. Our revenue base is dwindling. Despite the dwindling revenue base, government and governance has continually, inefficiently, in my honest view, continues to allocate the resources in most inequitable way. And what then do you have? If in Pareto analysis, 20% are sitting down and enjoying the goodies of the land, and 80% are out there, what do you think we are going to have? No peace, Fulani, Yoruba, Igbo, all the other 250 ethnic nationalities will be up in arms.
Agitating. All right.
To your tent, O Israel, which Asiwaju is saying, hey, no, I see this as something that is coming, and let me take that first step. And in taking that first step of asking government to inject more, indirectly is asking us to reprioritize, our ideals and the way we do governance. That is the way I look at it. And that is the way to go.
Cutting the cost of governance, which a lot of persons have been calling for. Perhaps you want to react to some of the things he just said. He mentioned a whole lot.
Yeah.
So let's get your reaction.
I think for me, you asked the question that what should come for first, either in terms of injecting to the economy
or addressing security
issue. So what will play out for me in public domain will be what led us into insecurity. And what for me led us into insecurity is because we have resistive youth that were not gainfully employed. We have people that are underemployed. We have people that cannot feed their family. We have people that goes home with 30,000 naira that cannot bag a bag of rice. So if we continue to fight security, how do we fight security if these people are not properly enabled? And how do you enable them until the system works for them and you create wealth within the society? So if you have a bunch of youth of about 33% that are not employed, how do you stop them without getting them something to do? Our popular saying goes that an idle house is devil's workshop. But in our case, a graduate that has gone to university, even now in Nigeria, master means nothing. So it shows clearly that our system is dysfunctional. You find out that when people go to university, to polytechnic, even to technical college, those days, immediately you are going out, you know where you are going to work. You have a system whereby average Nigerians are the one that power their system. You have a system whereby everybody generates their water. You have a system whereby every household would rather take their kids to private school rather than public school. You have a system whereby you coming out or serving, it means nothing to the economy. So I would rather toe the line of saying we need to do this investment. And how do we do this investment? You mentioned that we have a debt profile of 3.2 trillion. The best economy all over the world are the most indebted economy. China, US, or whatever you call it. But the question now is that they do not borrow to eat. And like he has mentioned, when we go to borrow loan in Nigeria, I could remember one of the governors saying by the time they come to look at the particular contract awarded, they discover that they have paid the contractor 70% and he has not done the job. You remember the case of fuel subsidy that some people do not even have office address and money were being pumped into the organization. So for me, those are the loopholes that the government needs to block. But nonetheless, we can't block these loopholes if these youth are still agitated, if these youth are not provided what they need to do. And I will have imagined that the 16 billion invested in power by President Obasanjo will have gone a long way in addressing the power issue. It is not. And you are now robbing Peter to pay Paul. You imagine the federal government telling us that the NEC was telling us a few days ago that the discos are unable to remit about 507 billion back to the economy. So you ask yourself, who is giving this money? NNPC is telling us that they are subsidizing, they are taking directly from accrued resources. Who is taking all this money and what template? What gives them the impetus? So for me... In other words, we are saying we do not have the integrity in the system. The integrity is not there. We do not have the trust in the system. Absolutely. As we speak, our health system is comatose. And the body language within the health architecture is such that the resident doctors are going on strike. And our leaders are taking care of themselves. If you know what I'm talking about. Our president is out there on medical tourism. When, if you went to LUT, or you went to ABUTH, you went to UNTH, bed space is just not even available. So in other words, the citizens don't trust the government. The citizens cannot trust the government. The citizens see a situation where, like you are saying, they are more or less taking care of themselves. And the kind of returns that we are getting from them on a regular daily basis. But we cannot continue like this. Exactly. We cannot continue like that. And so the only way is now to then stop and tell ourselves the truth. And one of the truths that we have to tell ourselves is that we are operating a governance system that is returning back to Nigeria suboptimal achievements. Are we willing to tell ourselves the truth? Are we ready to have that conversation? The challenge is, and the only way we can tell ourselves the truth is that leadership starts from the head. And leadership must continue to listen. And the citizenry will begin to believe government if they see certain things on. Unfortunately, what I begin to see is a situation where do as I say, and not necessarily as I do. I think leadership is a function of followership we have in the system. Right. I will give you an example. Look at during the EndSARS. There was all agitation that the youth want to take over, and a couple of people come together, call themselves different names, and when they were asked to come and account for XYZ amount of money spent during the protest, the L was let loose. So are these not the same set of people that we are grooming to become our leaders? So it's a function of our society. And the way our society is constructed now, we have all agreed, either directly or indirectly, that this country will be called Nigeria, and the 1999 Constitution should remain supreme. And we have also... Please let him land. Please let him land. Very, very important. He needs to finish his point. Yeah. Okay. Right. What I'm saying is that we have all agreed that 1999 Constitution is our term, is our Bible, is our guide, is our Quran. And we have elected those guys that would rather appropriate 150 billion for themselves. So the question you ask yourself is that election is coming in 2023. Are the youth still going to go to the poll with their... See, they call them sort of come together on social media. And ensure... An election happened in Abia about 3 days ago. The total number of voters in that election in Abia is less than 20,000 for a federal constituency. So what you find out is that, is it the leadership that asks you not to go and vote? It's not about the leadership. It's the way the system is configured. And now to the issue of stimulus or austerity. But you know what you do? An angry man is an angry man. It's an angry man. So the only way you can make them to be angry to satisfy him is to ensure that you deprive them of food, Deprive them of water, deprive them of schooling, deprive them of amenities, deprive them of infrastructure, so that you incapacitate them technically. And that's what we're saying, that how do we now ensure that we resuscitate them? Is to, for instance, that inject into the system. If, for example, they are building, let's say, about 1 million houses in Lagos, a housing project, you are going to employ a civil engineer. A constituency of yours is going to, even if it's going to be for 3 months, for 6 months, you are going to re-energize that system. But a system whereby you have, in Nigeria, we are our own plumber, we are our own carpenter, we are our own, all this. It's so interesting that if you want to do your house finishing, people go to Cotonou to go and look for people to come and finish their house for them, the Benin Republic or the Togolese. So what I'm saying is that if we have a system whereby we are technically making our youth, our teeming youth, or we are creating more of underemployment and employment, this is what we have. And that's what you're trying to say, that we can't continue to increase tax. We can't continue to increase electricity bill. We can't continue to increase our cost of housing. We can't continue to increase cost of transportation, because the salary remains what is it. And if I'm earning 30,000 naira and I'm not able to buy a bag of rice, the woman in the market that is selling 10 bags before will suffer. It's a chain.
It's a chain.
So what we have now is that we need to inject into the productive part of the economy so that we can re-energize and people can be gainfully employed.
And when you have accountability,
and when you employ people gainfully, the youth, if you employ the teeming youth to the system, see, you have been at work now. If somebody knows that he's going to go to work and is going to come back after 30 days and get enumerated, it's going to release the level of agitation. But when you find out that people are coming out of university, from polytechnic, from technical college, and they know what they need to do, is either to go and Sorosoke, or to go and become online fraudster, or to go and do abalaye behind a politician, we continue to have this level of insecurity. If the only job available for our youth is Amotekun, or Labour Security Ward, or civilian JTF, we continue to have problems, because these are not gainful employment. These are underemployment.
In other words,
we need to do it.
You noticed that I wanted to jump in, because when you talked about leadership and you're making the
point, what you bequeath to us, sir. That's where we are. Because I will tell you, sir, you may not want to agree. The generation that enjoy free education in this country are the ones spoiling this country.
Right.
The generation that employ free road, that take tickets from Lagos to London at one naira, are the ones spoiling the economy. And that's what they bequeath to us.
Right. You wanted to say something?
Thank you. I was going to say that I disagree in his labeling the youths. At least the youths that we are, I would rather say, the example that he gave with the NSAS, I think we saw the very best of the very best within our youths, even when they were not being properly led. When I say properly led, I'm talking about environmental. They went creative and they did things, and everybody knew that they did things that even all the governments, whether local, states, and federal government, were not able to do, and they did that in record time. We should recognize that.
No, sir.
In other words,
the same weekend. In other words, let me add this. The following weekend, Sorosoke youth are above 200,000.
He has to finish.
And we have election of Senate in Lagos at that time.
Allow him
not have up to 100,000 vote. No, where are they? And they're supposed to carry their PVs to go and vote.
Please allow me.
Yes,
where
for once of time. Yes.
Has failed is that these youths, despite all these challenges, despite the fact that we have not educated them well enough, and you know that, despite the fact that we have not given them good, adequate health, and you know that, despite the fact that they are unemployed, they have creatively created employment and brought in governance that has never been known anywhere. But what did government do? I know that the hoodlums came in. The essence of governance, that is where you have leadership, and that's why I disagree. The essence of leadership is to look at things clearly. Yes, you have the good, you have the bad, and of course you have the ugly. When you apply leadership by leading by example, when you said to the youths that, hey, wait a minute, leave your protest. We are going to listen to you. And they said, we didn't believe you. Eventually, they left the place. The next that we found was, the soldiers shooting at them.
Let me.
Leadership.
We need to wrap this up.
Let me be clear.
Just land quickly.
Okay, I will land and say the leadership thing, the leadership question is because we have so much inequalities. We see it all the time.
Right.
And until we address that, until that comes from the top, and I can tell you, the youths are not just ready.
Until that comes from the top, what happens? Then
we continue to march backwards.
All right, that's it. That's it. No
okay, youth needs to
no
have their
time. We have to wrap up
and do what is right, not only on Twitter.
Have their PVC and do what is right.
Exactly.
Right. Thank you, gentlemen.
They have
Abdul
their
Fatunke,
PVCs
public affairs
and
commentator,
the shooters are all
in-house
around.
analyst Obani Akinwale. Gentlemen, we must say thank you. We end the conversation now. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
All right.